tonight, not only as incoming RI presidents, but as a Rotarian who can relate to clubs extremely well. A longtime proud member of the Rotary Club of Windsor Road, Roseland in Ontario, Canada, Jennifer has a long list of Rotary accomplishments, not the least of which is positions with Rotary International itself and the Rotary Foundation. Professionally, she is a founder and president at Media Street Productions, Inc., a 25-year-old award-winning media company in Windsor, Ontario. Her talents have been strengthened, Rotary's reach and impact to many roles, including as trustee of the Rotary Foundation, RI Vice President, and co-chair of the End Polio Now, Make History Today campaign, raising funds along Bill and Melinda Gates and their foundation. Jennifer is a leader in cultivating experimental fundraising opportunities such as Rotary's Polio Golf Day with Jack Nicklaus in Juniper, Florida, which raised over $5.25 billion for polio eradication in one day. For the initiative Virtual COVID-19 Rotary Response event that raised money for COVID-19 relief projects and showcased Rotary's response across the globe. Working alongside political figures, celebrities, and global leaders, she uses her voice to raise awareness and hundreds of millions of dollars to eradicate disease, support peace, and provide clean water and sanitation in developing areas of the world. Her skill as an expert storyteller inspires hope and promise and motivates people to take action. Jennifer has received many honors and recognitions, including Rotary's Service of Self Award, citation for meritorious service, the YMCA Peace Medallion, the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal, and Wayne State University's Peacemaker of the Year Award, a first for a Canadian. Jennifer is married to Rotarian Nick Krasich, Dr. Nick Krasich, I hope I got that right, who is a family physician and also on track to be a district governor. Nick and Jennifer share a love for many things, including travel, cycling, golf, and relaxing at their family cottage. And they share a thirst for adventure, which is including cresting the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, Africa. Please stand and help me welcome Jennifer Jones to Missouri.
Thank you, Clint. I really appreciate it. And hello, Show Me Pets. I love the energy. I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here with all of you and to look out and see the smiling faces of so many amazing presidents-elect and the journey that we are going to start and embark on together. And I feel, oh, this is the Rotary. Okay, all the cameras going all at once. Kent, Dean, John, our district governors-elect, if you could just stand for a moment. First time today, actually within the past hour, that we've all had a chance to finally meet in person. And I am so proud of how you are training your teams, and we are in this together. And so give it up for your governors-elect. Well, I also want to point out a special group that is getting to know each other a little bit better in person, and that is your sitting district governors. If they could stand so we can give you guys a little bit of love. Now, I have to tell you, I don't know that I have been to another president-elect training session more often than I have been to Show Me Pets. And there's a reason for that. That is because this is where it all started. This is the very first one, and you know why? Because past Rotary International President Ray Klingensmith had the vision to create bringing us all together so that we can learn from each other and learn and riff off of each other's energy, to borrow, beg, and steal ideas from each other. And so, Ray, stand up so we can give you a little bit of love, honey. And I know that you had an opportunity earlier today to hear from one of my favorite people and a woman who I'm going to serve very closely with on the international board. Next year, she will serve as the executive committee chair of our board of directors, Elizabeth Yusevich. I don't see where you are sitting right here in front of me. And anyway, just love that you're here and love to share energy with you. And one other person that I want to introduce you to tonight, and well, it wasn't quite breaking the glass ceiling, but it was Before I go to the next person that I want to introduce, I do want to say, Linda Blessings, where are you? Where are you? Okay, stand up, stand up. Okay. She has worked so hard on putting this together, all of the decor that you see around the rooms, the thoughtful centerpieces with, and I'm going to tell you all the meaning behind all of these elements. But you are a blessing, and thank you so much for what you and your team have done. Thank you. Hands down, my favorite that I've seen. This is so amazing, so amazing. Thank you. And one last person that I want to introduce you to, and he snuck in just about an hour ago. And Larry Lunsford is a trustee of the Rotary Foundation, one of the stewards of our incredible foundation that allows us to do good in the world. And Larry is sitting over here. Larry, if you could stand up and be recognized. And I know we have an opportunity to get out into the foyer afterward for a little bit of hospitality and mix and mingle. I know that he and Elizabeth and I would just love to be able to meet so many of you. Now, when I say that I have been to this Pets more than probably any other one, that means I've also made a lot of friends in this area. And for presidents-elect who are in this room, I think that this next little request will speak volumes to the kind of connectivity that we have within the Rotary world. So for those of you in the room who you believe that we have an incredible friendship, a great connection because we've been together over the years, I'd ask each of you to please stand up. That is so incredible. And what's even crazier is that my husband just stood. Already in the good books. We joke, you know what, I've told this joke before, but we joke often. So Nick is district governor nominee designate. My mom is a past president. My brother is a current president. My sister-in-law is the president-elect of her club. There's a lot of Rotary going on in our family. And I joke, and I have joked in the past, that we have, well, there's no kids in here, right? No. Yeah, we have the four-way test in our bedroom.
Don't call me first.
You're with me. Anyway, as I said, it is a joy to be here with you. And tonight I want to be able to share some stories, some reflections, some thoughts about what we're going to journey together as we imagine Rotary over the next year. And I couldn't be more excited to be able to share some insights that you can hopefully take back to your clubs, share with your members, so that they can help understand the kind of journey that we want to take together in 22 and 23. Nick and I had the wonderful opportunity back in August to finally move to Evanston, Illinois, the home of our Rotary International headquarters, and a place that I have respected for so many years. As I walked into my president-elect office, finally to be able to see the space where those who have come before me have all sat, and there's always been such a reverence as I've walked out past each of those different offices, and finally to see the big desk where I would get to sit. It was a couple of mornings later that I received a private message. And I read this, and it was from a Rotarian in the UK. And he said to me, he said, Jennifer, he says, we've met, you've spoken at our club, and we met in Hamburg. We have a relationship in our club with a peace activist, a woman in Kabul, Afghanistan, and she needs help. Is there any way that you could help to get her onto an evacuation list? So here I was, sitting behind my big desk, suddenly feeling incredibly small. Who was I to be able to help her get onto an evacuation list? I think we'll all recall the images that we were watching on the television sets at the time of tens of thousands of people trying to flee out of the airport in Kabul. And now trying to help a woman get onto an evacuation list. So I thought about it. And I thought, you know what? Connections, just like we saw in the exercise here. I thought about a peace fellow that I had met a couple years earlier. And I thought, you know what? He's the kind of person who has the kind of connectivity that might be able to give me some advice. So I reached out. It was a long shot. I am incredibly proud to tell you that in less than 24 hours, she was on an evacuation list. Less than 48 hours later, she was on a plane being transported to somewhere in Europe for further processing. The peace fellow is the hero of this story. Can you imagine what she was thinking as she was sitting in the seat of that plane as it launched into the sky? That perhaps this was a miracle, a Rotary miracle. It is the power of the connections that we have. We have a global passport as members of our organization that breaks down barriers and boundaries. I know that we sometimes think of our own club experience, but when you come to an event like this, you start to see a little bit past your own club, a little bit into your own district, and perhaps how you connect to the world. And I think one of the most powerful things that's happened to us during this pandemic, if we can take the best from the worst, even though we've been a little maybe tired of Zoom boxes, it has opened up our world. I heard a laugh. We've all been a little tired of Zoom boxes, but it's opened up our world to being able to understand even more than we ever have before, that when something happens somewhere else in the world, that it also touches us just that little bit more. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to participate in a television interview on American television. And the interviewer, he fessed up something to me right at the very beginning. He said, you know, Jen, he said, I've been a member of my Rotary Club for more than 30 years. He said, but I just got Rotary. He told me about how he was participating in a coat program that was providing these coats to children in his local community that were in need. Can you imagine? He had to sit through 1,500 Rotary Club meetings before he finally got Rotary. There's something there. But what's the lesson we take out of that? The lesson we take is that we need to be involved. We need to be engaged. A couple of years ago, I was in Australia in Melbourne, and my friend Bronwyn Stevens took me to a grade school and introduced me to a young interactor named Peter. And Peter said this, he said, Jennifer, in order to have responsible children, you need to give them responsibilities. Now, I don't want to equate our members to children. Somebody laughed at that, okay. But if we want responsible members, we need to give them responsibilities. Just like my friend going and serving and providing coats to these kids, he had something that he finally got his hands into. He was incredibly happy to sit for those 30 years in fellowship with his fellow Rotarians every week at the same table. But once he got Rotary, he even went on to become the president of his club. And into his mid to late 70s, changed the format, took what was once the most vibrant club in our home district into one that had gone down and was coming back up again. So the lesson is, we need to make sure that we're engaging our members. We need to ask them when they walk through the door, what do you want out of this experience? And then it's up to us to deliver on that promise. When we have engaged members, they stay with us. You know, we don't have a problem attracting people to our organization. We have a backdoor problem. We have a problem keeping members in our organization. Every year we bring in approximately 150,000 members. Our numbers stay static. So what does that tell us? We lose 150,000 members. So the whole idea of trying to bring in numbers, we're kind of defeating the purpose if we're letting them out the back door. So instead of doing an exit interview when someone leaves your club, it's a little too late at that point, isn't it? We need to ask them on the front end. And not only them, our existing members too. What do you want out of your experience? And then help deliver it. We all know what we get out of this experience. Leadership growth, personal development, incredible networking, the friendships, the fellowship that we have with each other. It's an incredible gift. So I want to share with you a little bit about the theme logo, and I think it's here in front as well. The theme logo, so that you are able to go back to your clubs and share why this looks like it does and the thinking behind all of this. And our convention in 23 is going to be where? Melbourne, Australia, exactly. We all have to get best at saying Melbourne and not Melbourne, because that's the way they say it, and they like it very much that way. So our presidential logo, one of the things that I wanted to make sure happened was that it had a familial relationship to our convention logo. And so because that's going to be in Melbourne, what I did was, along with our staff team, reached out to a really amazing artist in Australia, an Indigenous Aboriginal artist named Ricky Salem. And we worked collaboratively on coming up with this design. So you'll note the circle in the middle. He started with that. So in the Aboriginal history, the lore, when they would sit in circle together, they would sit cross-legged on the ground, and sharing of ideas would happen sitting in circle. When you get up off the ground, there is like a sort of a horseshoe shape in the dirt underneath. And so what he said that stood for is the power of connection, because they're sitting in circle, sharing ideas. So to make it the ultimate connectivity, he closed the circle to make it a very powerful sign of connection. The dots that are around the middle circle represent people, also sitting in circle. People like each of us, people who are looking to solve the world's most pressing challenges. But there's 7 of them because we have 7 areas of focus. And so when you unite them together as the middle circle and the dots around it, what he said was that it became what he called a navigation star. So something that is our shining light, our beacon, that's going to help make us look into the future in a very bright way. Now, underneath all of it, and this is maybe my favorite element of it, the green line. And the green line, as he explained it to me, is what you call a digging stick. And so when you need to do hard work, you need to be able to use this digging stick to dig up the ground underneath, to build or to to plant or anything like this. So for us, as people of action, this is our metaphorical digging stick. So when we're working on these world's most pressing challenges, we need to have our digging stick together. So as you go back into your clubs, I hope that that's something that you're able to give a little bit of insight into what it is. There'll be many ways that people will interpret it. It could be a sun on the horizon line. I think a lot of people already guess and believe that it's people sitting around the table. But now you have a little bit of insight into what that is. And also, you should have received from me directly an email just a few weeks ago with a video that is about the comfort and care of our members. So everything about taking care of our members, making sure that they feel a valuable, inclusive experience in our clubs, that video is what is intended to be the message that is shared. And I hope that on July 1, that's something that you'll not only be able to review again yourselves, but you'll share this with your fellow club members so that they can get an idea of what we're trying to focus on in terms of the comfort and care of each of our members. Now, the colors, purple, green, and white, could be very easily interpreted this way. They could be interpreted as purple for polio, green for the environment, white perhaps for peace. But together, what they actually represent is the colors of the suffragette or the women's movement. And for me, just a very subtle nod to that history. I don't anticipate or expect to spend a lot of time talking about my role as our first woman president, but I do think that it's something that needs to be recognized. And so for me, it's just a gentle nod to make sure that that is something that I am not overlooking. So, okay, thank you. So I want to tell you about an occurrence a couple of years ago that I was sitting with my youngest brother, and his name is Dave, and he is, as I said, current president of his Rotary Club. And I was preparing for a media interview that I was going to be doing, and it was about the role of service in civil society. And so we were going through sort of, the mock interview kind of process. And I know that many of you, how many of you have done interviews with media before in your life? Yeah, a lot of hands. So you know that when you're preparing for an interview, you generally go through the exercise of thinking, what are they going to ask me? And then going through the exercise of thinking, what are my key messages? What am I going to say when they ask some of these questions? So again, role of service in civil society. So out of his mouth came these words. He said, in order to live in the kind of society you want, you have to help build it. And I looked at him and I said, Dave, I said, who said that? And he said, I said that. And he said, no, but who said that? And he said, I said that. And I said, okay, you're starting to sound like an Abbott and Costello routine here. But the reality is, those were words that came out of his mouth. And I love that so much because it ties so well into our vision statement. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. But those last few words for me are perhaps the most important. The lasting change within ourselves. We all become better people because of our journey together in Rotary. That's what I want our members to understand. I want us all right now, as we come out of the tumultuous time that we have been through together over the past 2 years, to be brave, courageous, intentional leaders that understand that taking care of our members right now is our ultimate priority. Helping to shepherd them back into our clubs to make sure that we're not leaving anybody behind, that we're taking care of our members so that they truly, at the end of the day, say, I love my club experience. Can we do that together? Good, good. I see a lot of heads nodding. A couple of years ago, Nick and I had an incredible opportunity to travel to the country of Jordan And we were there for a district conference. And the opening ceremonies of this conference was down on the shoreline of the Dead Sea in this open air amphitheater area. And it was this magical night. And there was this tapestry of stars overhead, and there were a few speeches, and then we retired to an outdoor dinner under the stars. And during the course of dinner, the governor brought over a gentleman to introduce to me. And he introduced me to Dr. Mark Turrentine from Indianapolis here in the United States. Dr. Mark was in the country to perform what's called a Gift of Life mission. How many of you have heard of Gift of Life before? Okay, a couple hands in the room. So for those of you who have not heard of it, it is an organization that was started by a Rotarian that provides open heart surgeries to children who could not either afford and or access them in different parts of the world. So Dr. Mark was there to lead a Gift of Life mission. And so fast forward toward the end of the week, and the governor came up and he said, Jen, he said, you know what, Dr. Mark is about to start the surgical rotation. Would you like to go to the hospital on the way to the airport to see the beginning of what he's doing? And I said, I would love to do that, absolutely. So quickly we got into the car, we raced off to the hospital. Very quickly, I found myself in a dressing room putting on hospital greens, and seconds later, standing in front of the operating theater doors. Now, I don't know how many of you have spent time in an OR before, unless you're a patient, but walking in and viewing it, I was a little concerned. I stepped in quietly, and I just stood off to the side, honestly barely breathing. And I watched, and Dr. Mark was standing in front of me, and in front of him was a table, and there was a patient clearly lying on the table that was covered from head to toe in a blanket. To this side of the table was a nurse, and to the other side of the table was an anesthetist. So I watched as Dr. Mark took what appeared to be a piece of cloth, maybe about the size of maybe a dollar coin kind of thing. And I watched as he took and started to stitch on what I could surmise would be a hole perhaps in the heart. And I watched him stitch with great precision, stitch, stitch, stitch. And every once in a while, he would take his hand and he would put it underneath and he would just give it a little jiggle. And then he would look over to the anesthetist and he would say, warm it up a little. And then he would go back and he would do stitch, 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 jiggle, 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 warm it up a little. And at some point, he must have felt some other energy in the room because he turned around and he said, Jen, he said, when did you come in here? And I said, just a few minutes ago. And he said, come on over here and let me show you what I'm doing. Yeah. So I stepped up and I saw the patient. Now, I couldn't see the patient except for the square now that I could see over the open area of the heart. And it was at that point, that moment, that he introduced me to 6-month-old baby Selma, a refugee from Syria. Stitch, 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 jiggle, 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 warm it up a little. Finally, he did the final stitches and he tied a knot, a really tight knot. And then he put his hand under. And this time, he gave it a really good jiggle. And then he looked over to the anesthetist and he said, all right, warm it up. And at that moment, little Selma's heart started to beat. Boom, boom, boom. In that moment, I watched her come back to life. I hadn't realized that her heart wasn't beating. Makes perfectly logical sense. It was in the middle of an open heart surgery. Of course it wasn't beating, but in that moment I got to see her come back to life. And then I got to go out into the hallway and see her parents and say to them, I just saw Selma's heart beating and she is going to be good and she is going to run and she is going to play and she's going to be an amazing little girl. And all we could do was just stand there together and weep tears of joy. I am a better person because I got to meet baby Selma. a lasting change within ourselves. Not every day is going to be a Selma moment, but every meeting, every opportunity you have to connect with your members, there's going to be moments like this. There's going to be highs, there's going to be lows. There's going to be things that are unexpected. And when I ask you to be brave, courageous, intentional leaders, it's making sure that we're looking out for each other. Making sure that when someone has something like that in their family that happens, that we stand with them. When the good things happen, that we cheer them on. I want us to imagine a world where we get up every single day knowing that we can make a difference. You don't imagine yesterday. You imagine tomorrow. 50 years ago, there was an anthem recorded that included these beautiful words. You may say, I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I want to invite you to join me on a trip, on a journey where we can imagine all that we can be. Imagine a world without polio. Imagine a world with clean water for everyone. Imagine a world where every child learns to read. Imagine hope and peace and love and kindness. That's why I want us to imagine Rotary. That's why I know that in 97 days, are you counting? In 97 days, we're going to start this journey together. It's going to be a good ride. And I cannot thank you enough for being leaders in our organization. I wish you an abundance of joy as we imagine Rotary together. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here tonight and for your incredibly kind attention. Thank you.
So Jennifer, you have captured our hearts tonight. Thank you for sharing those stories. We were talking earlier today about storytelling and the power of sharing the Rotary message. And you have given us such an inspiration around the possibilities that we have in all of our clubs throughout the state of Missouri to really share the power of Rotary. And you are just amazing. So thank you for being here. And on behalf of our 3 districts, we wanted to give you a little token of our appreciation by making a donation to the Rotary Foundation on your behalf.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Aren't we blessed to be able to have